And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with Jared Keene, our professor at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. How many different branches do they have in the university, Jared?
Well, in the humanities, several. But what's interesting about the humanities is that there is I don't know what you would call it, except I guess a crisis of faith. The enrollment seems to be dwindling in the humanities here in areas like history, well, of course, English, sociology, et cetera, political science. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the STEM, the technology, the metrics, the science, hard sciences are in many ways taking over, and students are finding that the STEM pathway is the path to, guaranteed employment. Whereas with humanities, that it seems like a sketchier prospect, like the diploma at the end of the journey maybe isn't worth the cost of tuition.
If you're going to write Hammer of the Dogs 20 years from now, what do you think that book would look like?
It would be there'd be a lot more what we would call AI drone swarms. I don't even know if a character like if there's going to be resistance, a character like Lash would need to do it sooner rather than later. But I don't know. I think the technology is just going to get scarier, more what's the word? More not advanced, but more inhuman and more well beyond the reach of humanity's efforts to control. And so that's why I think we're in a critical moment, I believe, in the development of this kind of technology. We have to rein it in, find a way to resist it, or else it will take us over completely. Just walking through my classroom this morning, so many heads bowed, peering into their devices, and not really considering the world around them. It's a bit startling. It's been a lot I've had to adapt and change my expectations for my students, because I see them very often just getting sucked into the virtual world.
Yeah, they're more technologically advanced than we were at a younger age, but I'm not so sure they're book smart as we were.
Yes, well, thanks to the pandemic, there was a greater push to put students online and out of the classroom. There was a greater push towards digital textbooks, books that you read on your phone or on your device.
Right.
And I don't think that's good. I think we have to stick to the tried and true methods of not just education, but also entertainment. I don't really think streaming is something that is good for us. I think binge watching is just what it is. It's binging, and it's never good when humans binge on anything, much less streaming entertainment.
When's the last time somebody actually looked at a newspaper as opposed to online?
I haven't seen it in years here in Las Vegas. I don't know where it's like elsewhere, but certainly everyone relies on their phones to read the news. To what's the term? Oh yes, doom scroll. I find that to be a very interesting term. It's never like a joy scroll. It's always a doom scroll, and I think that speaks a lot about the anxieties that social media, that mainstream commercial journalism, they're really just inflicted on us through these infernal devices, and I think that's going to not be such a good thing for us and our mental health. We've noticed a spike in or what we call a mental health crisis. I think a lot of that is brought on by the technology that honestly just takes advantage of us and makes us again doom scroll.
Yet at the same time, you have somebody, a friend of yours, let's say in England, you can send them a picture of you and your family, and they get it instantly. That's amazing, Jared.
It's so amazing, but we take it for granted, and instead we find ways to punish each other, to cancel each other, to scold each other online, to argue about politics online. It's very frustrating, because the technology can be it has such a potential to be uplifting and spiritually rewarding, and has such a potential to unite us. But in fact, it's doing the opposite, it feels very often at the moment.
Let's go to Eric, truck driving in Indiana, to get us started. Hello, Eric.
Hello, George. Haven't talked to you in a while, but I figure I better call you.
Hope you're doing okay.
Yeah, doing great. I got a question for you, is what his take would be on what's he think about, and I think that by the grace of God, this United States exists while we're here because God has really helped us because we've always seemed to get along and try to help out and be an ally to Israel. So what's his take on that?
Be more specific. What's the question?
Does he think we should remain as an ally to Israel, and does he believe that the Bible says that we should be protective for Israel and not let it be harmed by any foe or like Iran or anything like that?
Well, here's my quick take of it, and then we'll jump you in, Jared. I think absolutely we need to stand by Israel, to be sure. They've been a great ally of ours for years. The one mistake we made as a nation and a world in 1948 when we formed Israel is we forgot about the Palestinians. We should have formed some place for them and made everybody happy. That's my take. Go ahead.
Well, I'm in complete agreement with that. And Lash, the hero of Hammer of the Dogs, is a Christian, and I made that very intentional because I was getting sick and tired of these depictions of Christians as being, psychos or
evil.
Evil. It was so dumb, and so I made it's a very pointed take on the warrior hero. She prays to God, to Jesus, and she's a believer, and she rejects this atheistic technological salvation that so many people seem to be enamored with, and it's very frustrating to hear people, especially at these tech conventions, talk about the singularity. We're going to human consciousness is going to merge with the cybernetic sphere, and we're going to upload our memories into a supercomputing cloud or something. It's ridiculous. It's just technology, and science has become its own religion. And Lash, the hero of Hammer of the Dogs, is having none of it, and so she's taking it all down. But to speak to the issue of Israel, yes, I think that we need to make friendships, and extend our friendships and sustain our friendships and relationships with Israel, but with all countries. It's very frustrating that in 2023 we're still fighting each other over nonsense. And we need to have our own spaces. We need to have our own areas to enjoy our faith, worship our gods, and all that. But for Lash, there is only one God, and that's what she calls the true God from the Bible, and that's why I wrote this novel, is to give a different take on the warrior hero, a Christian who's not an evil psycho.
John, truck driving in Ohio's with us. Hey, John, thank you. Go ahead.
Morning, guys. I love this topic because I've always gotten into the movies where at the last second, we have technology and outside forces are going against mankind. I think it shows man gets tested throughout the years, morals, principles, and then you have to apply that to try to win. But I also like the other parts of the movies, like where man loses, Planet of the Apes, War of the Worlds, where at the very end, our technology couldn't stop them, but something as simple as a virus that was put onto this planet that we were immune to, the Martians were not. And I love that kind of a twist because it scares you. And it makes you, if we win all the time, people go, oh, well, it's just like in the movies, we win. But it's good to see movies where we lose because it scares you when you go, man, I don't know if we should be doing this.
Remember the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still with old Michael Rennie?
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the classics.
Great film. Yeah, the science fiction films of the 70s where mankind loses, Soylent Green, Planet of the Apes, those are tremendous films. And certainly, they're dystopian and all that. But I wanted to just add a bit of that 80s fun. I do think that science fiction movies have moved in a very dark, depressing, overly cynical direction. It's time to maybe redirect that, recalculate that, realign, find some balance. And so I wanted to create a story that offers what I call a bright darkness. So in other words, a dark dystopian story, but with a bright hero in place who can navigate the minefields and find a way to secure victory despite the overwhelming odds. I like that kind of story as well, and I think that's what I enjoyed about Hammer of the Dogs and why it's finding an audience today.
We're taking your calls with Jared Keene, who is the author of the book you just mentioned, Hammer of the Dogs. Let's go next to Roberta, west of the Rockies in California. Hello, Roberta.
Good evening. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine in the middle of the night here in the Sierra Nevadas of California.
Perfect. How can we help you with your question?
Well, back in the 60s, we had the series on TV, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Of course, back then we didn't have the technology, but they used radio-controlled airplanes to do political assassinations.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have the drone. We don't hear the drone. It doesn't show up on radar. And here it comes. You see the Secret Service looking this way and that way, and they don't even look ahead and overhead, and here comes the drone. So this is what I have to say about drones. They are tools.
Yes.
They can be for good or they can be for evil, but they are in the hands of men, and it's not the drone that's evil, it's the men.
Yes.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I was doing some research into the Kennedy family, Jared, and did you know that Joe Kennedy Jr., who died in World War II, died in a very unscientific drone plane that he and his co-pilot were flying? They were setting up the detonation of a bomb, and then they were to jump out of the plane and let the plane drone itself down into the ground and blow up. Well, it blew up in the air when they were playing around with the explosives.
Yeah, I read about that. What's interesting is that's sort of the origin of Captain America and the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created saga of the Avengers. Captain America disappears for a time. It's a state of suspended animation. And the Avengers find him floating there in the water, and they thaw him out. And he remembers that the moment before he was, frozen, he was on he and his partner, sidekick Bucky, were on a drone aircraft that exploded too soon when it wasn't supposed to. And so I always found that to be rather interesting. Stanley and Jack Kirby kind of taking a cue there from that story that you mentioned about Joe Kennedy Jr. Very, very interesting. Drones have always been with us, and there's always been an effort to create unmanned aerial vehicles, and I think that they're just going to get even more advanced to the point where instead of us controlling the drones, the AI will control them and convince us that it's all in our best interest to let them handle the nasty business of creating drone swarms. Basically, hundreds, thousands, millions of drones converging on a single target in a way that is unstoppable and can't be prevented. So I think that's an interesting way to interesting concept. Drones are tools, but the tools will just become more advanced until they become unwieldy, unmanageable.
What do you see, Jared, as the most pressing issue facing us as a world?
Well, I do think, without a doubt, that it's the AI crisis. As I mentioned, ChatGPT, the program that writes papers for you when you're in the university student. I think that is a crisis of cyberspace. Hackers are part of that crisis as well. But I think when having just recently watched Terminator, the movie from 1984, I do see the AI monster, the Pandora's box, the lid is open, and all the demons are coming out. So I think it's something we have to take more seriously, not less seriously. The recent cyber attack in Las Vegas is just yet another indication that things are not well, things are not healthy in the digital realm. And if we don't take control of it and don't manage it better, it will get on top of us. It will gain the upper hand.
Let's go to Ted, truck driving in California. Hey, Ted, go ahead.
Hey, nice talking to you, Jared, and great being on the show. Last time I was on, it was Art as the host.
It's a long time.
And, yeah, it was quite a while ago. Anyhow, my kid for Halloween, we moved to Florida. He was 13. I gave him a leather jacket and a plastic shotgun. And instead of saying trick or treat on Halloween, he said, Sarah Connor. And some people look really scared, you hear? Because those movies really get inside you. Yeah. I was hoping to tie your last guest in with Jared here. And about in 1983, I was in South Shore, Tahoe. And I was with about 4 or 5 friends, and we were just kicking around drinking and throwing some money on a roulette table. And I noticed this guy standing back watching the board where it shows the previous winning numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there for about 25 minutes. And he was a strange-looking albino cat with just ordinary clothes, really normal-looking, but an albino guy. He walks up, he throws a black chip on a number, he hits. He slides it all over to another number and hits again.
Wow.
Now, the math from $100 goes to 3,600 and then 36 times that. So within those 5 minutes, he turned $100 into $100,000 and then walked away. And I was thinking about the odds and is that intuition? And I came to the conclusion maybe that was just some alien making a withdrawal.
You might be right. It might have been an alien figure because the odds on hitting it twice like that is absolutely astronomical, Jared.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you read about Area 51, Bob Lazar. There's all kinds of possible and imaginative explanations, but the story that was just shared, I mean, that is not out of keeping for Las Vegas.
No, that's true. It's strange things have happened.
And that's why I love living here. And, having been a journalist in Las Vegas for many years, I saw, everything, a lot of back of house, behind the scenes moments that really are indescribable in some ways. And so I think Vegas, it's a playground. It's a place where anything can happen. And I think that's why it makes the perfect backdrop for, say, a dystopian adventure, because it's baked in. The fantastic is already here with the water shows and the gambling machinery and
it's in place. We're going to come back and take final calls with Jared in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to our final segment with Jared Keene, the professor with his Ph.D. in creative writing from Florida State University. He now teaches at the University of Nevada. We're talking about his book, Hammer of the Dogs. How'd you come up with that title, Jared?
Well, it's in its own way an homage to a very well-known biography, unauthorized biography of the rock band Led Zeppelin called Hammer of the Gods, which is of course, a lyric in the band's, immigrant song. And if you recall that book, it's just an outlandish chronicle of the band's exploits, the shenanigans that went on. And they were like, wild. They were depicted as wild pirates. I don't know how much of it is true. Of course, the book got some criticism, but it made a big impression on me as a kid in the '80s. I wanted to create a novel that possessed some of that rock and roll energy and aggression and rebellion. And like I said, it was just fun to invert that last word in the title, Hammer of the Dogs. And so that's my little nod to the hard rock music of the '70s and '80s that I loved as an adolescent.
On your cover, Lash is holding something that looks like an iPad. What is it?
Yes, it's her droning tablet. It's the device she uses to control line of sight, UAVs, unmanned, aerial vehicles, and what she does with the drones is very interesting because she doesn't just pilot them; she arms them. She creates special weapons for them, and she takes great pleasure in mincing, incinerating, destroying the bad guys. And so I wanted her body language, her posture, her facial expression to be one of resistance and rebellion and righteous what joyful resistance and righteous aggression.
How does she know who the bad guys are?
Well, it's very simple for her. It's anyone who has a device or a drone that's coming after her. And in the ruined wasteland of Las Vegas, it's pretty easy to spot them there. She doesn't so much hear drones as intuit them. She feels their presence before anything else. So she's got kind of like the equivalent of like a spider sense. Her senses tingle when drones approach her, and so she's able to resist them, fight them, smash them, and turn them against their own masters. Before
we go to final calls, Jared, what's going on with Lake Mead these days?
Well, there's been a lot of rain here in the valley and in the Southwest in general, and for the first time in my life, I'm starting to get bitten by mosquitoes, and so as a result, Lake Mead's levels have risen. That famous image of the speedboat that was lodged there in the muck, sticking straight out of the lake. It's now covered over with water, so it's wonderful to see the Lake Mead. It's wonderful to see the waters rise because it hasn't for many years.
How many skeletons did they find when the water went down?
More than a few.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's interesting about that is I always thought that the Lake Mead was a place of wonderful recreation, but it can be very dangerous. People sometimes, they party a little too much, drink a little too much, they fall off the boat, and they drown. So I know that it's called Lake Mead, but sometimes it's also earned the nickname the Lake of Death.
Next to the calls, east of the Rockies, we're going to Denver in Mississippi. Hello, Denver. Thanks for calling.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for this opportunity. Just a little bit about my background. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you for serving.
Master of the Martial Arts. But what I want to talk about is I read Riley Martin's book several times, and he was contacted by extraterrestrial, and they made it very clear to him that there was artificial intelligence that took over a planet. Demonic spirit possession, they had to go to war with these. And so there was also a Chinese scientist had a problem with the special soldier. They had put artificial intelligence, and he killed a lot of scientists before they could control him. I'd like some comments on that, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right. Interesting there, Jared. Go ahead.
Well, I do think that, we were talking about the power of AI, but, what if some of this alien technology is added on to that AI situation? Like, what if, in other words, the aliens get control of the artificial intelligence apparatus that we're creating? I mean, that could be very, I don't know what the word, it just could be mind-blowingly frightening. And I do have a second volume of Hammer of the Dogs mapped out where Lash doesn't just, having taken care of the federal government via drone war, she moves on to a greater enemy, one that's beyond the stars.
Interesting. All right, Brendan in Austin, Texas. Hey, Brendan, go ahead.
Thank you, George and Professor Jarrett. Earlier, you guys were mentioning how the Southwest, when we were doing the nuclear testing, it seemed like we didn't really care about the people there. And that's been going on for a while. I wanted to briefly talk about history and then the technology that you guys were talking about. And with the history part, there was the Native American Removal Act in 1820, where they moved all the Native Americans surrounding Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico and Nevada, so that if Mexico or Texas ever tried to fight west or north, we would have to fight through the Native Americans, because Texas wasn't its own country at that time. It wasn't its own state. It was its country at that time. It became a state in 1845. Indian removal stopped 2 years after that. So that's kind of interesting. And it's almost like we forgot about the Native Americans, like we forgot about the Palestinians, like you guys were mentioning. It's maybe we didn't forget about them. Maybe it's just we didn't care about them and we didn't value what they had. But the technology part that you guys were talking about, the Terminator thing, and the AI, it makes me think with all the current technology and decisions that are being made, and that this is such an important time, that maybe that's the reason we have such high activity. And Art Bell talked about time travel a lot. Maybe our space and time that we're in is this battleground for all these different factions with multiple agendas, and sending drones or AI into a different timeline to fight for their agenda suddenly doesn't become as far-fetched. And it makes me think as well of Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd, the Congressional Medal of Honor winner, who said after World War II that all these Nazi crafts came up out of the ocean in Antarctica and defeated them. Maybe it's not where the Nazis went, but when. Maybe they're going through different timelines, taking over timeline to timeline, galaxy to galaxy, with all these nefarious entities.
Sounds like another book for you, Jarrett.
Oh, these are tantalizing prospects to think about scenarios. And I just think that, all of it lends itself to, again, the idea that, Las Vegas, the Southwest, is just a free-for-all, a place where anything can happen, time travel, technology. And I do want to talk about, the downwinders, the people who were caught in the fallout of all that weapons testing. I mean, that was an incredible and very depressing saga. I don't think we've really come to terms with that as a country. The fact that we've essentially nuked ourselves, and
I'm not sure we were aware of fallout at that time. What do you think?
I think Hiroshima and Nagasaki had given us plenty of indication. I don't know about the hard evidence, or I should say the metrics on it. But what's really interesting is to contemplate how all of this technology is used in a way that puts people last. We've forgotten the downwinders, we've forgotten the indigenous populations, we've put that all aside, and instead, we continue to throw money, taxpayer money, into funding these terrifying weapons, and then we test these weapons. They've got to be tested somewhere. And at the moment, there are other places in the world where these drones are being, let's just say, experimented with and allowed to, we're figuring out what they're really capable of.
Let's go to Joe in the Bronx in New York. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, George, how are you?
Great.
Good. Jared, I have two questions, actually. With the Hammer of the Dogs, were you at all influenced by William Golding's Lord of the Flies? That's question number one. And also, I think I've been recently bit or stung by an insect drone. I tried to squish it after it was just left laying there on my stomach, and I was not able to squish it because of its hard plastic body with these flimsy little wings on it. Now, could that have been an identifiable insect drone, or am I dealing with something that was from nature?
Let me answer the first question. Lord of the Flies, absolutely. It's one of the greatest, dystopian stories ever conceived, executed. It's just a beautiful and terrifying story. So, yes, Lord of the Flies is the blueprint for all of these horrifying and yet exciting thrill rides. For example, Hunger Games and the movie, the Japanese novel and movie Battle Royale. And then to answer your second question, yes, the drones are capable of being as small as a mosquito today, as a real mosquito, like a tiny speck. And that to me is absolutely frightening. I hope you took some good photos of what was left of it, and be cognizant and aware whenever you see something like that, because it's certainly within the realm of possibility. As terrifying as that may sound, yes, mosquito-sized drones are something to watch for.
How do they power those things up?
Oh my goodness! The thing, the batteries get smaller, but more importantly, the thing that really scares me is what if there's a swarm of them? So let's say you catch one, you're stung by one, you're bitten by one. But what if you're bitten by hundreds or thousands of them?
You're a goner.
Super terrifying. Super terrifying.
And bug spray won't work, will it?
No, not quite.
Let's go to Ray in Phoenix, Arizona. Hey, Raymond, go ahead.
Yes, this is Ray. George, I've been looking to talk to you for a long time.
Well, thank you, sir.
I think your guest might be interested in the fact that I see paranormal now, and they take the form of spiders.
Spiders?
I think there's a Lord of the Spiders as well. And they've been with me for 6 years now, and anyway, I think the reason they're after me is because I've been seeking out the secrets of Scripture. And hopefully you're listening, Cornelius. There's a book of Revelation mentions the mark of the beast.
Yep.
And you guys mentioned about these phones and how in some ways these phones are getting too addictive for the children and families. Even George mentioned going to restaurants and people are all on their phones instead of talking to each other. So I think that's all tied in, the beast being the AI that I always knew was going to be built even before. The Bible mentions a beast and the Satan, his soul, entering into that beast. And the beast comes to life. And when he does, he wants everybody to bow down and worship him, or you don't receive the mark. And for him to want to be alive means he wasn't before. The AI has expressed wanting to be loved by everybody and wanting to feel alive. So I think there's a link there. And the mark of the beast, real quick, says that he that hath wisdom calculate. If you notice in the book of Revelation, they were very detailed to mention that the Messiah was speaking in Hebrew when he spoke to John.
That's true.
So you have to take the numbers 666 and calculate them to Hebrew.
Ray, we're almost out of time. I want you to have the final word, Jarrett.
Yes, well, the spiders, that's very interesting. There is a spider, a spider bot in Hammer of the Dogs that Lash uses against her enemies. And, of course, the spider is one of the most, when you look at one, you can't help but have a visceral reaction. And of all the different kinds of UAVs, drones, and from the snakes to the condors to everything else, it's just interesting that it's the spider that freaks me out the most. I think that the more that drones take over our environment, the more fantastic and more animal and more bestiary characteristics they will sport. And I think it's just the sky's the limit as far as drones. You have to get a control of them now before it's too late.
Jared, thank you for being on the program. Good luck with the novel Hammer of the Dogs. Let us know when the next one is done. For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladouceur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Boros, Tim Banal, George Knapp, and Ian Punnett, I'm George Norrie, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. I'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.